Hi, everyone. Um, I am the person who's introducing this episode, and I'm doing it with grace and verve and energy. I'm KP Kaszubowski. I am a writer, filmmaker, and a brand spanking new NLP practitioner. Um, and I'm here with Jenna Knapp, who just was my trainer, and we are co-writing a book that is currently called Becoming BFFs with Your Subconscious Mind. I'll let Jenna talk a little bit about kind of what the purpose of this book is, and then what this video podcast purpose is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KP. I'm happy to be back for episode 2 of our new video podcast to talk more about becoming BFFs with your subconscious mind. To put it very simply, it is exactly what the title is to make this part of yourself that's always there, running the show 24/7 behind the scenes, more accessible, and to get acquainted with your subconscious mind so that your conscious mind and subconscious mind can work together and you can form this friendship-like relationship with yourself to help create the life that you want to live and take time to really process, heal, love what's happened in the past, accept where you're at currently, and know that by doing both of those things, you're able to co-create with your subconscious mind what it is you'd like to experience next. And these video podcast episodes are a chance for us to just talk through some ideas that are going into the book, but need to be hashed out a little bit further from trainer to graduated student. And we're really excited to dive into strategies today, which is a really big jargony topic in neurolinguistic programming. So I'm really happy that we get a chance to break it down a little bit more today, KP.
Yeah, it feels a little strange to have like our first episode to talk about strategies, because it takes a lot of previous knowledge of how the subconscious mind works in order to like understand the concepts. But for people who don't know, I'm currently in the process of like taking down notes and transcribing and basically putting together a patchwork of all of Jenna's teachings and podcasting, just so that it's all down on paper and we can start going through it. And I got to strategies, and honestly, it is so boring to me. Like, I know it's very important. It's absolutely important. So I thought that we could have a conversation and bring a little bit of life to it, so it's easier for me to put it down on paper.
Yeah.
The first thing is, what does it mean? I keep hearing this phrase, and I know it's true, but what does it mean that how you do one thing is how you do everything? Like, can you put that in like a less businessy term, I guess?
Oh, I like this question. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's what I say, I say this a lot. But I want to find an example to run with for that specifically. So, and you asked in a less businessy. So if we were to compare how you do the dishes to how you communicate with a partner or a lover, we can use that. Okay, so if you were to look at how you do the dishes and know that there's a strategy there, right? It doesn't just like magically happen. If you were to break down how it happened on a subconscious level and look at the strategy, that means you are examining how the decision to even do the dishes is made. When in your cycle of a week do you realize, okay, the dishes need to be done? Are you the type of person that takes care of your cereal bowl the second that it's in the sink? Do you wash it and clean it and dry it right away? Or do you wait for your dishes to pile and then you like, okay, I'm ready to do the dishes when there's no more spoons left?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you the type of person who would just, now that there's no spoons left and there's just a pile of spoons, you just are now going to wash one spoon what you need to go back into the kitchen and have your cereal? Okay, so looking at that, that's like a few different things going on. It could be an internal conversation of like knowing when to do them. Could be a visual kind of signal that, okay, I see a pile of dishes, I should do that. It could be a feeling of irritation that, like, why am I the person that's always doing the dishes? It could be auditory. It could be someone else telling you, I did the dishes last time, it's your turn. Like, there's so many different ways it could happen. And like we talked about on our last episode, with the way that we experience the world, neuro of NLP, meaning the nervous system, that really is like what we hear, what we feel, what we see, the internal dialogue, that is our nervous system and how we experience the world. So all those little things actually create internal representations for us. And we're having our own unique experience of what it's like to do the dishes. So let's use the example that you're the type of person who waits until there's no spoons left to do the dishes. And let's also say that you're in a relationship and you wait for the critical moment when you have to communicate a boundary or a need in your life. It is really, really common to be able to see links in strategies across the board. And that's the power of kind of being playful with it and like using this example of dishes to be like the care and energy that you put into the timeline of how you know what you need, but you like wait until it reaches a critical point to address it, could be mapped across to see how do you act in your relationships. When do you wait to communicate your needs and desires? Do you wait until there's a fight? Do you wait until something bubbles up? Do you like continue kind of keeping like tally in your head of certain things, and then a certain action is made or remark is made that lets it all start to flood? So that could be an example. But if you're the type of person that takes care of a dish the second you put it in the sink, maybe you're the type of person that when you feel the first ping of discomfort in a relationship, or you feel like, oh, something there doesn't feel right, maybe you're the type of person to say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about this? And you nip it in the bud and you talk about it. So that's my answer.
That's awesome, because I'm getting a lot of feelings because I'm seeing how I am and how it is how I treat relationships.
Wow.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about senses, because while you're talking, I was thinking like it's like usually a visual cue for me. Like if I see dishes, even if it's like 220, doesn't really matter about the number, but if I see them in the sink, then I put it in my head, like my calendar head.
Yeah.
And I do it when I have energy or space.
My calendar head is also just, I love that sentence. And you do it when you have space. But that image stays there until it can be done.
Yes.
Okay. And can I ask you, what type of communication do you tend to gravitate towards when talking with your husband?
Well, it seems very similar, because like if I notice, like if visually, if he seems like low energy, or like maybe a negative emotion, or like something doesn't sit well with him, I see it, and then I put it in the back of my head so that later when we have time and we're in the same space and we're not working or something, then I bring it up. How did this sit with you? So like, it is like, yeah, it's congruent.
Wow. But it stays there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bring it back up at a time that makes sense for both of you.
Absolutely, because we also, both of us work at our house, different rooms, but yeah, so it's like there's a time and a place. Mm-hmm. But it is a visual cue. It's like, oh, his face looks upset about something, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you keep it there and then bring it back up later for resolve, just like the spoons. And I asked you a question, but you were about to say, like, let's talk about the senses in response to visual cue.
Yeah, so I guess if I were a person and I was reading this book that we're writing, what would help me discover what my strategies are? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, what's the best, like, first couple of questions and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. So it can be a strategy for there is a strategy for everything, right? So maybe if you're reading a book and you need an extra prompt, like of knowing, like it can be a strategy for making friends, it can be a strategy for falling in love, it can be a strategy for doing the dishes, a strategy for doing the laundry, a strategy for how you drive across town, strategy for how you choose to invest in a program or in your business if you're an entrepreneur, strategy for how you read a book. Like there's so many different sort of strategies for how you buy your groceries or how you buy the shirt that you're wearing. And I think the most like accessible entry point that I like to use with people is looking at a piece of clothing that you currently have on and asking yourself, how did I decide to buy this? And getting really clear on what was the first thing that went through my mind, or the first thing that made me feel, or the first thing that I heard that made me want to buy this shirt or these pants. And if it doesn't resonate with you to like use a piece of clothing, like just finding something around you that you know that you bought, like you went through the decision making strategy at one point, because that's really what a lot of strategies are. It's like a decision making process, and that can be really a fun place to start and kind of light without being like diving into like how do I communicate in relationships, but start small and look at how you answer those questions. And the questions would be, what was the first thing that happened, what happened after that thing happened, and then what happened after that, and you kind of go until you arrive at the decision. So I can give a little example of the shirt that I'm wearing, which I wore specifically for this because something interesting happened.
Fun.
And I'm like, it's summer, why am I wearing a sweater? Because I want to talk about it as an example. So my buying strategy for this shirt, I saw it, I don't have anything this color. I was so attracted to the color. I was like, whoo, color. So it's visual. Just like KP said, that visual cue happens for her husband's face and also the spoons in the sink. So for me, it was the color visual. Cool. What happened after that? Well, once I knew I liked the color, I immediately went to the price tag. And there was a bright red discount sticker on it, which made me feel excited because whenever I'm buying something, if I feel like I'm getting a discount, that is a big motivator. Cool. What happened after that? Then I went into visual, but instead of external visual, I went into my mind's eye and I was running through all of my different clothes to see if it would go well with other outfits I already had. Then it turned into trying it on, making sure that kinesthetically the feeling of it is good. I like the way that the texture is on my body. It fits well. I feel like it's the right shape, it's the right size, etc., etc. Then this is where it got interesting because I didn't even realize that this is something that I do until my partner mirrored it back to me. But then after we got out of the fitting room, I started to tell my partner all the different things that I could wear with this. So I had the internal visual like closet of how I could make this work with other outfits. But then for me, it was important to get external validation. So I started to explain and almost justify and validate all the different outfits that I could use, or that could use this pink magenta sweater. And then, I mean, Taj was kind of like, okay. And we talked about it later, which I'll get to in a second. But I was like, yeah, okay, like validating it out loud and that external talking about it made it more exciting. And then I decided to buy, right? So the strategy was complete. That was how it finished. But what happened later is that I realized, because Taj mirrored it back to me, that like I had to validate my purchase. I couldn't just stop at, I like the color, it was a good price, I bought it, right? Some people also would just be like, I like the color, I'm buying it. They wouldn't even look at the price. There's so many different examples. So this is an example of like how something that feels so simple can actually be pretty long. But for me, that comes from how I had to buy clothes growing up. I wasn't allowed to buy clothes that didn't fit or expand my already existing wardrobe. And it was always about the value and like, how long will this last? And what else can you wear it with? And is it smart? Is it an outfit you can only wear like once a year? Or is it an outfit that you can wear 50 times a year, you know? So being able to also recognize that sometimes those strategies, something as simple as buying a shirt, can show us belief patterns that come from childhood that we've been modeling after our parents, or other role models in our life, um, things that happen at school, things that kids said to us growing up. It can actually give us a lot of information by just exploring how we do things.
Oh, I have so many questions. Okay.
Uh,
Do you see how this process relates to, like, let's keep with the relationships, like how you,
yeah.
maybe it's not like solve issues in your relationship, but like start fun things in a relationship? Yes.
Mhm.
Buying clothing is fun. It's a possibility, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that question. And I would say yes. I would say that internal closet picture thing happens with like visualizing, like, oh, like thinking of a date that I could go on or that we could like do together, thinking of it and then expressing it out loud and like running through all the things of the price and the place and just like
Mhm.
trying it on and seeing before you just do the thing. Yeah, but there's totally a level of validation that has to happen. And now we're talking about scarcity mindset.
Why is that? What does that mean?
That means like having to validate the money that you're spending on a piece of clothing, a fun activity with your partner, with friends, and like making sure that it aligns with where you're at now, which I subconsciously just said it's coming from a scarcity mindset, which I think is
Mhm.
coming from early life things for me of like being careful how you spend your money when you're living
Yeah.
on a budget.
Does that relate to how you spend energy or like time too with friends, maybe relationships?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's not money and it's if you're looking at energy or time, same thing, like plugging
Yeah.
something into the calendar, being able to validate why it's worthy of that time and that energy or why it's not.
Okay. So here, like, I want to make sure we get kind of to like the future pacing, or like, all
Yeah.
right, after we have discovered what I do in every little part of my life, which is kind of scary, like, is it dangerous to pick at and like change how your strategies are? Because if you do one thing this way, that means you do everything. Like, does that change everything? Like how you exist in the entire world?
Um so I think that statement, it can be scary. How you do one thing is how you do everything. It can be scary. And oops, maybe what there is to focus on is, or a better focus is to like use that as sort of like a framework, but not the end all be all. Like
Okay.
you could start to see, oh yeah, this is happening over there too, and it could have a big ripple effect or a domino effect. Like if I take care of this one area and I knock it out, what other areas can I take care of too? And look at it as like the areas that you want to change, right? I feel like if you don't, that's the power of NLP and life coaching and stuff. It's like you can't make the change if you don't want to make the change. But if you're ready to make the change and you do want to start picking at an element of a strategy that doesn't feel good and you think that there's something else that could make your life easier or more flowy or more abundant, then and you're in like congruence with it making the change, then that could be a side benefit that it influences other areas.
Mhm.
um, but in the respect of like, oh my gosh, if I make this one change, is it just going to go in every direction? Not letting that be scary, because if you feel that way and you're not ready for it, it just won't happen because you have to want the change.
Okay, there's two routes I want to take, so but I'll pick one for now.
Okay.
One that I don't identify with, but I was thinking about guilt. I know a few people who probably the first or the second thing that motivates them to do something is guilt in all areas of their life.
Yeah.
And guilt, obviously, like always, for every human being ever that ever existed, it feels awful. And it
Yeah.
feels like it is very motivating because it feels so bad. Okay, so let's say you're working with a client and that person says like everything I do in my life is motivated by guilt. Like I do dishes because I feel guilty. I call my mom because I feel guilty.
Yeah.
I work this job or whatever.
Yeah.
How would you approach that person? Or like, how would you work with them
Yeah.
to adjust their strategies?
This is a really, really great question. The first like thing I would ask is, what would you like to feel instead
Mm.
of the guilt? And by that, we're going to recover more information around, well, I'd like to feel, it's hard to do without an
Yeah.
example, but do you want to play along with me?
Yeah, let's role play. Because I'm locating a couple of people who have talked to me about this.
Okay.
So instead of feeling guilty, let's say I would like to feel, I'd like to have fun. I'd like to enjoy life.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. And can you think of, or can you give me a specific example where you you are motivated by the guilt so that we can see how the fun would feel instead?
Um, this is interesting. Okay, you put on my acting. Um, I I go to my cousin's house every Friday night because I feel like if I don't, they're gonna talk badly about me. They're gonna say that I am not like a family like centered person,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that I'll feel guilty.
You'll feel guilty if others think that you're not a family centered person.
Mhm.
Okay. And what would it feel like if you went to your cousin's house because you wanted to just have fun?
I don't think I could have fun at my cousin's house.
Okay. So how would you have more fun on Friday nights if you weren't feeling obligated to, by the guilt, to go to your cousin's house?
To have the space to like do whatever I wanted, like not even like picking something else to do, but like just knowing that I can do anything I wanted to do on a Friday night, like at the drop of a hat, would be enjoyable.
Mm, okay. And if you were to have that sort of space to have that kind of fun, that you could make the decision on um, on Friday, like in the moment, see how you feel, see where your energy's at. How would you fill the family cup up and make sure that you are getting the family time in a fun way other than Friday nights, if that is important to you? I should also ask,
Yeah.
do you want to be a family person? Is that important to you, or is it coming from outside and you're accepting the projection as you?
Let's say it's coming from the outside, but I do like the majority of my family.
Okay. Okay. So for the most part, it's coming from the outside. So how would it feel on a Friday morning to let your cousin know, I'm not coming tonight?
Bad. It would feel gross. I would feel like I'm letting someone down and I would feel guilty.
Okay. You would feel guilty, even if you knew how good it would feel to have the space and the time to make a decision later in the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you were able to get rid of that guilt and know that they're there enjoying whatever and you're doing whatever else, feeling really good, and enjoying life, what else could become possible for you when you reclaim that time on Friday night and think about yourself more than what other people are projecting onto you?
I feel like my house would be cleaner.
Okay.
I feel like I would get better sleep. I would have more time to hang out with some friends.
Hmm.
And I have missed out on things on Friday nights that I would rather have been to.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because I feel guilty for saying no to the friends, but I had already obligated my time to my cousin.
Okay. And when did you decide it had to be a every Friday night situation?
I guess I was just going along with what the rest of the family like decided.
So what would it feel like if you went once a month on Friday?
That seems like a good compromise, but I kind of just don't want to go ever.
Oh, okay. Okay. And the family members that you do want to see, what would be an ideal hangout situation that you would love and really have fun and enjoy doing with them to sort of check the box of family time for the people that you do want to see?
It's so weird because like this, I'm talking like as if I'm someone else, but okay, like this is not even close to what I would want to do, but
Doing good.
um,
You're doing good role playing.
I like the idea of like asking my grandma and grandpa on an excursion, but like a couple days ahead of time, and it's only a one-time event. Like I really like that.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't feel guilty because I'd be asking them to do it and they would let me know if they wanted to do it too and if they had the time like that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that instead of a schedule and having scheduled family time, you crave, what would you call this that you just described?
It feels very silly to say it, but like freedom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not silly.
Mhm.
Moving around more spontaneous and seeing what you do feel like, right? Just like you want on a Friday night. It's like, oh, I do want to have an excursion with my grandma and grandpa this week. Like, what would that be like?
Mhm.
Would it be fun? And like, when you know something feels fun and enjoyable, where is that in your body?
It's like it feels very like free moving, like in my chest and shoulders and stuff.
Okay. And when you feel guilt, where does that show up in your body?
It's like my face feels like really shamed, and then my stomach feels like heavy and gross.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So end scene, end scene, and just be like, that was, we went down the role playing channel for a moment there, but really what I was doing was starting to ask questions of around like how you make the decision to go on Friday nights and asking like what you want instead so that I could know that fun and enjoying life are important to you. And then more words came up like freedom and being able to make a decision in a moment and have a clean house and sleep better. Like we collected all the things that are important to you and all the things that could be available for you if you weren't moving from the guilt. Now, when it comes to actually changing the strategy, though, that what I just did was sort of like collecting the information about how
Yeah.
you do it, how you do the thing that's creating not great feelings. But then knowing what I know now about the guilt, where it sits in your body, that it's still there, even if you advocate for what you need, we could go in deeper with more NLP techniques or timeline travel and releasing and sort of diffuse the charge, but we just built up a bunch of reasons why it it's a strategy that's not working.
Yeah.
And if you could release the guilt from that area, it's probably going to ripple effect into the other areas of your life where you feel guilt too.
A lot of things are illuminating. I We have a few more minutes, so I'll just say, I had worked with Jenna, whoever's watching this, and we went time traveling and we released anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and hurt. And it's very weird, but it's so true, like how releasing the charge of those five emotions completely changed how like almost every element of my life was
Mm.
experienced. And like it wasn't like like I was a frog. Like it wasn't like I wasn't myself, but it's just it did change a lot of how I perceived the world and how I acted and
Mhm.
behaved, at least in a smaller way. Anyway, so yeah, releasing guilt. Like
Yeah.
that could really change the way a certain person would do anything in their life if it didn't have such a strong hold on them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why talking about a spoon in a sink or a shirt at Old Navy or the way you communicate in a partnership, it's like it's all can become a smaller metaphor for the big things like I feel guilt when I don't go to this family function or all the other things that we are constantly making decisions about, right? Like how exhausting is it to have an unmade decision in your reality, in your
Yeah,
mental space, in your body? Like it takes a lot of energy to be on the in between of like, should I tell him I can't go? Should I cancel? Should I say I'm sick? Like, what if I just tell him I never want to come again? Like that's a lot of energy. And through this work, we're able to sort of pick and explore what everything that's happening under the surface too. So I'm really grateful that we were able to do that role play to sort of explore it.
yeah. Thinking more too, it's like someone who's motivated away from guilt, I guess, is what, because there's, maybe we should talk about that. Away motivation. Like they probably have a difficult time leaving a job that they don't want because they would feel guilty for leaving a coworker in the lurch.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Right. And even the same thing, it's like that question around like, how do you feel on Friday morning when you tell your cousin I can't come? Okay, you still feel guilty, right? It's like being motivated to get away from the guilt versus being motivated towards the fun, towards the empty schedule, towards the ability to do whatever you want. Yeah, way stronger on the guilt side, which lets us know, okay, there's a lot of releasing to do, rather than like manifesting and building and going towards the goal. It's really, really common for us all to be more motivated, away motivated, because we're always wanting to escape discomfort and pain more than we're wanting to go towards the reward or the
yeah,
prize. And that's why even just like goal setting is revolutionary for some people, because no one asks like, hey, what do you want in the next month or week or year? We're just trying not to repeat cycles that hurt us before, but in that we're staying in a loop.
yeah. I want to get into that, but I just want to point out like the self-compassion that occurs when you realize we are literally genetically fitted to be away motivated because that's evolution. Like
Yep.
we want to run away from poison ivy or tigers and that kind of stuff. And it is really difficult to like if our base state is away motivated, it's very difficult for us to just naturally choose what we want and go toward it. It takes a lot of mindfulness, like mental fitness.
Yeah.
But do you want to maybe like a glance at away motivation and toward motivation? Like what's the difference?
Sure. So the example I like to use with this is a personal example that comes from my mom's weight loss journey, and she has always been, I shouldn't say always, for the since I was born, so for the past almost 30 years, has been on this cycle of losing weight, gaining it back, seeing a certain number on the scale to the point where, okay, now I'm ready to lose the weight again. And the how we can talk about away motivation with this is like she sees a certain number on a scale and then she wants to move away from that number. So then she feels motivated to lose the weight. And that is her motivation strategy when it comes to weight loss. She has just recently really gotten to a place of feeling towards motivated towards the number on the scale that she's been wanting to see since before I was born, right? So like, but instead of holding on to that number and holding on to the way that that felt to be in her body, for like the way that it felt to move around the world before the cycle of thyroid and giving birth and all the things that happen after you give birth to a child, it's like that was never there. It was just the scary number was the one that would really get things going. And so every time she would lose the weight and get closer to that number, she hit a plateau and kind of stop and then like slowly go back. But once she started slipping back, it wasn't enough of a motivation to get away from it. It only became motivating once she got close to that number that scared her. So then she moves closer, and that can be really like going with what you said, KP, about the like we're wired to be that way. That can be a really hard change to make, to be like, okay, I'm going to be so intentional about this next cycle of my life where I'm exercising, I'm eating healthy, and I'm watching how much water I drink and all these things. And I'm only going to put my intention on the end result. that's an exhausting thing to do. It's amazing, and if you can get there, it's incredible, but it takes a lot of energy. And going back to subconscious mind, path of least resistance, we're more wired to just keep doing what we're doing and then move away from threats, move away from pain. And yeah, she's doing an excellent, incredible job now. But when were having conversations as I was learning NLP, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so away motivated, and I only feel it when it gets really, really close." So for whoever is watching and listening, what is something in your life where that shows up? I know for me, I'm like that with to-do lists. I want to move away from the consequences of not being uh, done with something when I said I was going to be done with it, or like a due date, right? I want to move away from the consequences rather than moving towards how good it feels for it to be done. Um, Even though that is something that it would, I know how good it would feel to just like be done in advance and be like, "Ooh, that feels so good." But that motivator, that pressure does something for me. And even as an NLP trainer, there are always more things to explore and unpack and unlearn.
every day.
I I know this will be the last thing, but KP, is there something that you have to say about away and towards motivation and how it shows up or has shown up for you since you became aware of it through mental health method?
The first thing that's coming to mind is like friendships, like
Mm,
the people I want in my life, as opposed to like, oh, there's maybe a couple people, absolutely no judgment. Everyone's here on this planet for a reason, but like just don't give me that zap or like make me feel seen or heard as much as I want.
yeah,
Um, so making that shift from like I'm avoiding these people or I'm trying not to give these people as much of my time to like these are like the 5 people that I just like I light up when I'm around them and like being motivated to if it is fill my schedule or like dedicate my
yeah,
time to people, it's like to be motivated to think about the people who do light me up as opposed to like how I feel dragged down. And maybe this isn't the best example because there's
oh,
obviously so many elements to a relationship and many relationships. So that's something that comes to mind though.
I love that so much because it sort of is like a zoomed out perspective of like reframing the guilt perhaps of like letting relationships that maybe don't fill your cup in the same way go by focusing on like, oh, it feels so good to be lit up, and that's okay. Like,
Mhm.
you deserve to be seen and heard and responded to and around the people that make you feel good. I love that example.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking about other things like I mean this is a big topic, so maybe this is for another time, but like just the concept of intuitive eating as
Hmm.
opposed to like shaming yourself for having that cookie, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
Like really lean into like what does make you feel good,
Yeah.
like what makes you feel hydrated, what gives you energy to do the things you love, like and really and if you're going to think about diet and exercise and rest and stuff like that, like think
Yeah.
more about the goodness that you can add to your life
Yeah.
and then the things that you are trying to run away from, especially with diet and exercise, like those would tend to fall away when you're focusing on the toward motivation.
Exactly. And you just helped me remember and realize like the overall strategy, like using my mom for example, like that overall strategy of like reaching a point where she was almost at her goal but not quite, and then like waiting until it got back, like that's a long-term strategy that she was just repeating. And it's so easy to repeat that when you're away motivated because there's no big vision that you're working towards. You're just trying to get away
Right.
from everything. Once you've gotten further enough away from it, like the pressure kind of subsides. But if you, yeah, lean into the things that you desire, that's gonna, what, no matter how much work it takes, like repetition is powerful, and at one point it's gonna stick and become the thing that like locks it in and breaks that pattern, that cycle, that strategy that is not working anymore.
This is awesome. I don't want to pick our next topic, but I think talking about like having the subconscious mind to work on something would be really interesting to follow up this conversation.
You mean like tasking?
Yeah, like the subconscious mind always likes something to chew on and work on
I
underneath the
love that idea.
surface. Like, that
Yeah.
might be fun to tackle next.
Okay, we'll see. And we're taking next week off for scheduling reasons, but we'll maybe circle back to that 2 weeks from now and unpack it further. Thank you so much, KP.
Yeah, and a beautiful sweater. I'm so glad you decided to choose it.
I just really love the color.
Very good.
And we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you for tuning in. And we're excited to continue unpacking the subconscious mind and teaching you how to become BFFs with your subconscious mind through this process of writing the book. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.